there, welcome to the Road to Rich podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Rich, and this is a podcast where we talk about all things entrepreneur, business, and community. And man, I got a great guest with me today. Mike Wynn has been practicing law since 2014, doing consumer and corporate bankruptcy. You're the founder of Wynn and Associates PLLC. You serve with me on the FSU Development Board. You're the Commodore of the Yacht Club. Amongst other things that you do, man. So, Mike, I appreciate all of what you do in the community the things that you do every day to help people. And I really want to dig into what you do for people. But how did you get into bankruptcy law, man? I say this with the utmost respect. If I met you on the street, I would never know you do bankruptcy law because, man, you're a fun dude. You're, you're happy and you're pleasant to be around. And I always envision that a bankruptcy guy is just kind of like a accountant type, and that is not you at all, dude.
So that's one, thank you. That means that the number one goal that I've always had as an attorney is actually paying out, right? I've always said since day one, I don't want to walk into a room and go, that guy's a lawyer, right? So if the board shorts is what throws it off, if it's the lingo, if it's the surfing, if it's the whole enchilada, if that's what throws it off, then fantastic. Because, lawyers as a whole are kind of a rough breed, right? We get this idea of being stuffy and being just kind of, soldiering to and fro from where we're going. But really, we're problem solvers, right? And, law school, unlike a lot of other areas of maybe kind of professional furtherance of education or, trade skills, et cetera. Law school, more than anything, doesn't teach you a specific trade. It doesn't teach you a specific skill set. It teaches you a way of thinking. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so if you're someone like me who already probably had a few screws loose and grew up in an entrepreneurial family, my father, an entrepreneur, also happens to be a lawyer. My grandfather on my mother's side, huge entrepreneur.
Awesome.
My grandfather on my father's side, entrepreneur and businessman throughout his life. You have that way of thinking. And then you go to law school, and it breaks your thinking a little bit more.
Yeah,
and you get into it, and then you go, well, wait a second. There's an area of law where you get to use creative thinking and your legal thinking to play with businesses every day, and it's this weird area of law called bankruptcy, and no one really knows it or deals with it. And man, that seems like something I'd be interested in.
No kidding.
And
That's
so
awesome.
it kind of went from there. My father was a bankruptcy attorney, but he did more on the consumer side, and I love business, and so for the last 10 or 11 years, just been cranking away on the business side.
And I think that uniquely gives you some insight into what we talk about on this podcast is the insight that you have as to what makes business successful and not successful. Man, you see it, and when you went to start the firm, like was there some specific moment where you just said, you know what, I can build something of my own? Because I know you've done attorney work for a while, but then you recently started your own firm. So what led you to that decision?
Well, and so what's interesting, this may be a Road to Rich breaking news here, but recently my firm did a merger and acquisition with another firm out of Tampa that is probably the best in the state at bankruptcy and commercial work, one of the best in the country at bankruptcy and commercial work. And so I've kind of silently been going through that merger and acquisition process.
Very cool.
That actually just finalized on July 1st. This is one of the first times I've talked about it publicly.
Nice.
So the name of that firm is, thank you. The name of that firm is Stichter, Rydell, Blaine & Postler. Most people just know them as Stichter, Rydell, but that's me. It's I am them, they are me. We're a group of individuals who look at it and say, we have this niche area of practice that all other lawyers need, and let's double down on that. Because from a bankruptcy standpoint, we see business usually when it's at the end of a rope, right? A lot of people, when they talk about entrepreneurship and when they talk about running business, you get very kind of fantasized about the joys and the thrills and the excitement. And so when people get into entrepreneurship, they're like, look at all of these influencers and look at the amazing things they're doing. And if I just double down and if I get all my content up and if I'm out and I'm all gas, no brakes, we're going to be successful.
Yeah.
And at the other end of that spectrum are bankruptcy lawyers.
Yeah.
Right? Money, because as I tell people, bankruptcy lawyers take a short position on the American dream, right?
Yeah.
If the American dream works, it can't work for everybody.
Yeah.
And so failure is inevitable. But as I think Alan Branch has talked about on your podcast before, Failure is part of the process.
For sure. Yeah.
Bankruptcy is not a failure and an end mark. It's not a period to a sentence.
Yeah,
It's
for
a
sure.
semicolon.
And you see that probably more than anybody because you think of failure as finite and this end point, but in a lot of cases with the folks you deal with, it is the beginning of something different or something new or a change.
Absolutely.
And you see that better than anybody, I would think.
What you have to do when clients come to you, and it's so funny that we use this word failure, right? Because failure more than anything is a mindset, right? And so many of the clients that I see, they're coming into you, they feel downtrodden. They feel like they have let people down. They feel like there's nothing left. They're depressed. And you have to look at them and go, you're not depressed. You're in a really tough spot. There's a way out of it. And whether that's starting over and pivoting and doing something else, or it's looking at the pieces of the business that's left and building something new, you have the opportunity to look at that and breathe life back into what sometimes feels like a hopeless situation.
Yeah.
And I say to people that sometimes I'm like part-time business therapist, part-time business attorney.
Yeah.
Because as we as entrepreneurs know, so much of entrepreneurship is being able to keep your head in the game, keep your mind focused, and stay driven on the goals that you know will make you be successful.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes you need someone in your corner going, yeah, you made some mistakes along the way. We can fix those, but also keep your head up, kid. You can keep fighting. There's more out there.
Yeah. Sure.
And so it's kind of part of it.
Yeah, that is cool. How do you deal with the emotional weight of that? Because you are dealing with that quite a bit.
I'll tell you. So one of the things a lot of people don't know that deal with me now professionally is the first 5.5 years of my career, I worked as, and I'm going to use air quotes here, a part-time public defender. And I did that for two reasons. One, I wanted trial experience, and two, I wanted the opportunity to work with people and to really just get to know people. And when you see people in those situations who feel they have absolutely no hope, and you have to remind them that there is life beyond this moment, it teaches you about people. It teaches you a degree of empathy that you may not get in other areas of life. And so then you take that into the business world. And, one of the things that I talk to my clients about is bankruptcy is a life's work. It's not one decision.
Yeah.
It's a series of decisions.
Yep.
It's a mindset. It's a worldview. It's everything coming together, and you don't know what to do anymore. And now we have to help you see yourself out of it. And so you have to have this sense of empathy, which a lot of people don't associate with lawyers, in order to be able to tell people there's light beyond this.
Yeah.
And it's a very humbling process, especially, when I first started doing this, I was mid-20s talking to people in their 50s and 60s who had kids my age, and now they're coming to me saying, help me through this. And I'm like, I realize how ironic it is to ask someone your child's age how to fix a business you spent your entire life building. But hey, we're going to do it together.
Well, that's so critical to being able to help people resolve those issues. And you and I have talked before about being able to be, have empathy for people comes from a place where you have experienced failures and you've experienced loss and grief and those sort of things. And we've talked about how that helps prepare us to be able to help other people better. And I thought that was really interesting. We talked about it last time about that builds you to a place where now you can help other people. And you do that, man.
Well, and so that's the weird thing about trauma, right? In whatever form it comes in, is you look back on experiences and you go, I would not wish that experience on my worst enemy. But at the same time, I am so thankful for that experience, for how it molded me, how it has grown me, and how it allows me to help other people who may go through similar experiences. I think you sent me a post, perhaps I think it was by Stephen Colbert, that talked
him
about
and Anderson Cooper.
That's right,
having a conversation.
And that's the thing, is trauma is universal, right? If you've gone through it, you understand it, and regardless of what skin it takes on, the feelings and the effects that it leaves on you are similar. And if you learn how to grow from that, then you can help people who are going through similar traumatic experiences. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is we're here to help other people going through stuff. That's what lawyers are supposed to do. And we got lost along the way, I think, for a lot of us. But our job is to help people going through things. And so that's what I get to do every day.
Yeah, and yours is unique in your field that you really are more directly dealing with failure than some other mechanisms that way.
Right.
And I'm glad that you're able to do those things and empathize with those people. Do you ever have people that come back to you later and share that they've been able to rebound in success? And what does that
Yeah.
feel like?
Oh, it's the best, and I mean that's kind of the whole process in bankruptcy, right? Is so you get an asset or an individual or a corporation that is distressed. They've had some sort of traumatic event, whether it's business interruption, personal life interruption, whatever it is, but something that caused the wheels to fall off. And they come to you and they say, I need help. And what we typically do is would put them in what's known as a Chapter 11 reorganization. And there's a bunch of different forms of that. I won't go into all the specifics, but you put them in that case. And the core essence of those cases is establishing a feasible reorganization. So one of the best days in a bankruptcy case is when you get to go before the court on what's known as confirmation and say, Your Honor, creditors, parties in interest, you told us it wasn't possible. You said we couldn't do it. And outside of bankruptcy, this business would have failed 9 times out of 10. But because of this process, here is financially how they're going to do it. Here is how everyone is going to be better off than they would have been if they hadn't gone this route. And here's what we're going to see on the other side. And so that's one of the happiest days. But then to your point, one of my favorite days, and I do this often, is I go into restaurants all around Panama City and Panama City Beach that we've reorganized, and I eat there.
Yeah.
And I give them my patronage. I go and see clients who my father reorganized 10, 15 years ago, and they're still operating. And that's when you go, it works. And it's just that little smile where you see them, they see you, and no one wants to talk about it, right? But
Yeah.
we all know.
Yeah.
You know, we do work with you guys, right? And you're with Aaron Rich Marketing, and you guys do a lot of work for us. And I had a conversation with one of your marketing team members. This was probably a couple of years ago, and she said, "Michael, you know, we've really got to get your Google ratings up. We've really got to get your Google ratings up. There's not a lot of Google ratings out there." And I said, "Did you ever consider the fact that maybe my clients don't want to talk about being my clients?"
Yeah.
And she went, "You know, I hadn't thought about that, right?"
Yeah.
It's one of those weird things about bankruptcy is we don't talk about financial struggles. We don't talk and normalize discussing financial interruptions or what could be perceived as financial failures. And if we don't talk about something, how do we ever make it better?
Well, and it's a lot like therapy that way. And you talked about that earlier, where you're part-time therapist, part-time bankruptcy attorney, but people don't like to talk about things that they aren't successful about. And we talk about it a great deal on this podcast because so much of being in business is about accepting, understanding, and overcoming failure. And it is integral. You cannot get better without failure. And, being able to have a positive mindset about being okay, but learning through failure has got to be part of any entrepreneurial journey.
Failure is not about what went wrong. It's about how you respond to it.
Yeah, fixing
right?
it.
Exactly.
And making sure it doesn't happen a second time.
You know, a good friend of mine once said, if you make a decision based on all the information that you have available to you, and it turns out to be a horrible decision, did you make the wrong call? I said, no. He said, when's it a bad decision? I said, when you don't learn from it.
Yep.
He said, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So a failure is a moment in time that we view in retrospect, right? And we as entrepreneurs have to have the perspective to see ourselves beyond a hardship that we're facing. And I tend to find that the closer you get to your calling, to where you're supposed to be, to the true successes that lie before you, the harder those potential failures can come at you.
Yeah,
because,
for sure.
again, life is a process that doesn't want everyone to succeed. And so you have to see beyond that, right?
And to have the strength to continue to fight past it and to learn and to have the ability to self-reflect and, make those changes that way. That's an important part of that entrepreneurial journey too. And I would imagine that, your job has taught you a ton about resilience and the human spirit.
Well, it has, but it's also taught me that I can't shoulder it all myself, right? So I'm a believer. I realize that a lot of my strength comes from something far bigger and larger than myself,
Yeah.
right? So I draw a lot of energy and strength from that. Other people have different practices and different ways of going about it. That's great for them too, you know. But I think you have to realize that resilience is more than just you having the gumption every day to get up and keep going. That's part of it. We all have to do our part.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes to truly get where you want to go, you got to tap into something a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper and realize that the world is not yours, but you are part of a world that you need to move forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think that the entrepreneurship journey that you've been on has changed you as a husband and a father?
Oh, man. Yeah. Whew. I wish. Now, I've got a daughter who's 4.5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She is my world. Second, the only person that comes close is my wife. But my wife would say that my daughter is her world more than I am, and
Yeah.
and rightfully so. You know, you have this idea when you get married and you decide to start a family and you're running a business. Okay, well, I'm going to do my business this way, and I'm going to allocate these times, and I'm going to do this stuff to try and move my family forward and to try and help my family and be a good father and be a good husband. And then you get into it and you realize that, you know, those are countervailing interests because they all beg for time.
Yeah.
And time is our most precious, non-renewable resource.
Absolutely. Yep.
And as a lawyer, specifically as a commercial lawyer, I sell my life in 6-minute increments, right? Everything I do is by 1/10 of an hour. And when you realize once you have a family, and specifically once you have kids, time becomes so finite.
Yeah.
Right? And you watch growth.
It gets worse as she gets older.
I can only imagine. And so, you know, I look at my daughter and I look at my wife and I know how much I cherish that time with them. And so as an entrepreneur, I go, I need to make sure that I am making myself as valuable in the marketplace so that I can maximize my productivity and efficiency there, and then leave myself as much time as I want to have with my family.
Yeah.
Because your family's not something you can pick up and put on a shelf like you can a project.
No, and you don't get that time back, Mike.
You'll never get it back.
And I've talked with Kevin Elliott before about this, and that changes as you go through that entrepreneurship journey. You start off and you think that the most important thing to you in business is to grow it and make money and do this, and it changes over time. And now it's about buying back my time with my kids and being able to have the freedoms that I want to be there, man. And it's changed a great deal over the years.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've had the good fortune of representing some very successful individuals, not in bankruptcy, because I do a lot of commercial and transactional work too, and advise a lot of individuals who are looking at making large deals. And I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of successful individuals towards the end of their careers. Never a single one of them has said, you know what, I wish I had closed a few more deals instead of taking time with my family. Every single successful entrepreneur I've ever met has said, spend time with your family now. Spend time with your family now. And if all the most successful people that we're chasing, trying to be like, all tell you, hey, look, your aim is on something else and it needs to be on your family, we better look at our family a little more, because they're the ones who are putting in the work to support us when we're out there doing work. You know, and like you said, you never get that time back. And so it's definitely been something, even as I make this transition during our merger and acquisition, is I said, you know, my family is paramount and I will do everything I can for the good of my team, for the good of my clients, and for the good of my firm. But if I have to make the choice between my family or billing another hour for the client, my family wins. 10 out of 10. Because they're the ones that will always be there for me no matter what.
Your feeling, the strength of that feeling and the importance of it as you go on through your life, it just gets more and more that way. Steve Jobs had a famous quote about that too, where he talked about at the end of his, close to the end of his life, it was about, he had all these incredible successes in the business world, but his time with his family was something that was the most important. That, you think about having regrets. That's. It's not, did you close a deal, right?
So,
You're never going to remember that.
You
right?
won't, right?
Yeah.
I typically only remember clients if they're really, really good and become friends or something like that, or if they're really, really bad. But even then, I don't remember the money.
Yeah.
I remember the people, but I don't
Yeah.
remember the money in the deal.
Yeah.
And I want to have those memories of my family more than I want to have memories of clients.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times on business podcasts and entrepreneurial podcasts, they talk about favorite books that they've read and, books that inspired them as entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And unfortunately, I fall in a category of lawyers where law school absolutely killed reading for me.
Yeah.
My eyes got worse through law school. I read hundreds of pages a day, every day. Reading is not fun for me. But one of the last books that I read, cover to cover, I read right as I began the practice of law, right as I began starting out as a young attorney. And it's called The Last Lecture. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one or not. I believe it's Gary Pausch, but it's the name of the book is The Last Lecture. And it is a phenomenal story of a man who had achieved more than most could dream of in their field of work at a young age, and then found out that he was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer. And the book, I won't know spoilers towards the end of it, but the book is about that process for him and him, having achieved all of these accolades and achieved all of these awards, but now facing mortality, something that comes for all of us, and focusing on what matters most. And as I look back on my career, brief as it has been thus far, that book has been probably the most foundational piece of information I ever received, because it reminded me, day one, your family
To live,
and the values and the life that we have is so much more important than any one business project we may do. Because bring it back to bankruptcy, right? I see the dreams of people come before the court at the brink of death, day in and day out, right?
Yeah.
Businesses come, businesses go. Deals rise, deals fall. Your family and the life that we live and the life that we're called to live lasts long beyond any business we can create. And so I think if you get that right, then your businesses will flourish as well.
Yeah, and to be able to find that balance where there is a happiness between the amount of time that you need to work to keep the business and have it grow and do those things and be able to spend time and dedicate to the family. I wish I had learned some of that earlier on, because I feel like my perspective now, 12 years into it, is totally different than it was at the beginning.
Absolutely. I mean, when I started viewing time as our most precious non-renewable resource, it changed everything for me.
Yeah.
Because then again, you sell your life in 6-minute increments. So time is now money and it's a resource I'm never going to get back.
Yeah.
So then if I have to work, I must work as efficiently as possible, because that time is so precious. I can't waste it.
And we don't know what time we have. And you, in where you're at in your career, you have so much ahead of you, but at the same time, I know you're someone who enjoys that path too. And you do a lot of stuff outside of work, and you travel and you surf and you do things that you're enjoying life. I do the same things, Mike. I travel the world and I go fishing in different places. And there isn't a one of those that I've regretted, because I don't want to get to where I'm 70 some years old and I'm physically not able to do these things that I value doing and spending time with my family and taking them on trips and that sort of thing. It's so essential that you're doing that now, and
Well,
I'm glad that you are.
Well, I think we were raised in a ideology of either or, right? You must either be someone who's out fishing and traveling the world and surfing and doing these things and living this self-actualized kind of wandering life, or you must be a savvy business individual who is running and pushing and all this. But certainly during
your 90-hour work
weeks, you got to work. You got to walk uphill both ways in the snow and rain to work, and work 90 hours, 100 hours, 1,000 hours, more hours than there are in a day. And what I think we have come to realize is that blending the two and making it more of a both and, right? I am both a wandering surfer and a commercial attorney, right? And one helps serve the other. And it goes back to, is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The top of the hierarchy pyramid is self-actualization.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be able to look inside yourself and say, I am more than one thing. In order to be the best at everything I am called to be, I must figure out how to do all of those things.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love being involved in the community, because our community is everything. We were meant to have a tight-knit local community. I don't think we as people were meant to try and find community on this national or global level. We were meant to really be, bought in on the people that are around us that we see on a day-in-day life. So I invest in that. If it matters to you, you invest in your community. Surfing and fishing and being on the water, I got salt water in my veins, man. To deny myself that would be like denying myself oxygen.
Well, and I think you perform better when you're able to get out and let some of that go, because you're dealing with serious topics, man. And to be in that all the time, you got to find ways to decompress and let it go.
One of my favorite memories as of recently is I was working on a really large case that was out of Tampa, and just really bad facts. I represented a multi-million-dollar creditor in it, and the debtor in the case is scrambling, and we're trying to get this deal done. And so it's 5:30, 6 in the morning, and I've got debtor's counsel on the phone, and he's yelling at me, telling me we've got to get a deal done. What he doesn't know is I'm in board shorts with a surfboard in the back of my truck, driving to the pier to catch a sunrise session. And so I'm talking to him. We're working through the deal, and we get very close. And I said, look, I think we're really close. I need to go think through some details, and then I'll get back to you. He says, okay. And so that 5:30, 5:45, I hang the phone up. I wax up my board. I paddle out. I go surf at sunrise. You watch the sun come up. You watch the birds flying. The fish are popping. You're catching waves. I get goosebumps thinking about it, right? It was a gorgeous morning. And my head was so clear. And I was so at peace because I had tapped that portion of my psyche. I got back in the truck, called the guy back. We closed the deal, fixed that portion of the case, and it rolled on.
Yeah.
But if I had just sat at my desk banging the proverbial hammer against it, it might not have happened because I hadn't taken that shift.
It's for you to be able to remove yourself out of being behind the desk. And Steve Taylor at Emerald Coast Fellowship and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, man. Like he'll go fishing on a Saturday ahead of his sermon on Sunday, and it gives him the mental clarity to really just think. And I think when you're out there in nature, man, I think there's something that you're closer to God when you're disconnected from computers, from technology, and you're just living in the real world. It does something to the soul to where it legitimately puts you at a place where you are clear of thought.
Absolutely. I mean, there's something about water, right? We've gravitated towards it for millennia. And there's something about feeling the energy and presence of something bigger than yourself in water. That's why I love surfing, right? Is you want to realize where you're situated in the world. Watch a mountain of water come at you that you can't stop. It hit you and sends you 10, 12 feet down to the bottom, and you're there. Hi, buddy. It doesn't matter what your balance sheet looks like. It doesn't matter what's happening with payroll. It doesn't matter what email you haven't responded to. You're 12 feet down in the ocean just waiting to come back up and going to see what's ahead of you, right? Yeah. And so it gives you that perspective in a very real, visceral sense that helps you, if you'll let it, make you better at business.
Yeah. Business is a funny thing, man. I will tell you that over the course of time, I've almost kind of gotten to the point where I'm working to fire myself from my own business, right? Which sounds weird, but I learned something from a book I read, and it was the 4-hour work week. And what it taught me was the value of my time, right? And that was a pretty powerful lesson to me, because if your time is worth $250 an hour, right? And you can pay someone $25, $30 an hour to do something that you can but shouldn't do, you need to be paying them to do it, because now you're getting your time back that way. That changed my whole perspective. And now when I look at my business, I think of things that I'm doing, and if I can have an admin person or one of my staff take on some responsibilities, and it's gotten me to the point where now my functional day-to-day stuff within the business is very limited. and I'm doing a lot of things that I do as an owner level and not necessarily as a manager
Right.
level that way.
Well,
It's changed everything.
everything.
Mike.
Well, but you
Yeah.
have to ask, right? What is the highest and best use of my time? And there's things that you can do that
Mhm.
likely you had to do when you were early on in your
I did,
entrepreneurial career.
and now I don't.
And now you
Yeah.
don't, but you probably know how to do them better than any person you could hire to do them. But if you don't let that person go through the same process
Yeah.
that you had to go through, they'll never be able to have the opportunity of achieving the things that you're now achieving.
You know what's funny about that is I totally agree with that statement, but now those people that I have hired to handle this particular set of responsibilities, they are way better at doing that now than I ever was and ever will be.
That's
And
evolution.
yeah,
We perfect a process that someone else perfected before us.
yeah. And
Right?
so now there's no way that I would touch building a website because the people that do it for my company are way better than I ever was, right?
And what a
it would
compliment to
screw everything
you.
up. Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, I've hired good. I mean, we got
Well,
great people,
but
but
here's
you
the
got to
thing.
trust them.
You have to trust them and you have to start. And I think one of the greatest compliments that an entrepreneur can ever look back and take is to look at it and go, I used to do something. I hired someone else to do it for me. I trained them as best I could. And now they're doing it better than I could have ever imagined. What a testament to a process that you created.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like at this point, I'm just a teacher and a facilitator. Like my job is to give them the tools that they need to do their job, support them in growing and grow the heck out of them and get out of their way.
Right. Well, we're curators for the next generation. We are, whether it's information, whether it's buildings or businesses or whatever it is, we are gifted with talents, skills, information, assets, whatever it may be. And it's our job to curate it, make it as best as we can, and then pass it on to someone else to continue the work. It's a ever-going process. And I think that's entrepreneurship and business in general we are part of a much larger process.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is a cycle that goes on far longer than any of us will ever be here. And what we hope we do is make an impact on someone or something that people can look back and go, I learned that from Aaron.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity for him to teach me that. And here's how it helped me be able to do what I'm doing.
And that's a really cool thing to be able to help the next generation of entrepreneurs to learn. So if you had financial lessons that you wanted to tell to an entrepreneur that's doing that to avoid some of the pitfalls, what kind of things would those be?
The number one thing I tell everybody is start with worst case scenario. You've got to start there. As an entrepreneur, we know how things can go well. I had an investor one time sitting in a pitch meeting, and he's the money man in the room is usually always the quietest, right? And so everybody's talking and they're pitching, and they're handing out the prospecti and all this, and the money man finally goes, "Yeah, but I've never seen a prospectus that didn't work." And he just kind of thought, "Yeah, that's true, because everyone always wants to tell you how things can go right."
Yeah.
But what I see on a day in, day out basis is people who didn't plan for things to go wrong.
Yeah. Risk mitigation.
Exactly. You cannot take a risk larger than your ability to absorb the consequences.
Yep.
And for entrepreneurs, you have to black hat your idea. There's a lot of people out there doing business who you can tell they only ever had yes men in their corner.
Yeah.
Right? And you need someone who is able to look at what you're doing and say, hey, I'm not telling you not to do it, but here's some constructive criticism.
Yeah, you need to think about this, this, and this. Yeah.
Because if your idea cannot understand philosophical criticism, then your business will never be able to withstand the sands of time and the friction that comes from life, right? You have to be able to withstand that and say, here is what my idea was. Here's what the problems that people have addressed with it. And either A, I'm willing to absorb those problems. I acknowledge them. I accept that they're out there. And if everything goes wrong, I'm still okay.
Yeah.
Great, go take that risk. But if someone hits you with problems that you didn't see, because frankly, it's always really hard to see our own blind spots.
For sure.
And you get upset, you get angry, or you don't know how to pivot or how to adjust to address it, you really need to rethink your business idea.
Yeah. And anticipating problems is a big part of being experienced in business that way, and knowing where the pitfalls may or may not be, and knowing that you may not know those things. You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know, but you don't know what you know, and you know what you don't know is what I always tell my kids, right?
Is that a Wu-Tang song?
It's a matrix, man. I got a matrix for it. But you got to think about those things, and there are things that you don't know what you don't know. And that's why having people around you that may have different experience than you do is so critical, and mentors and people that have, and podcasts that tell you about stuff that you've come into, man.
Yeah.
Those kind of things are so essential. And the beauty of the modern world is people today have access to people far greater than when, I was growing up and when you were starting your business and all that, man, that the beauty of it is those people are around today that you can learn from and hopefully learn from.
Yeah, it's a really great thing. We have so much information available to us, and there is an overwhelming amount of information and resources out there. And what I would encourage people to do is take it in, listen to it, but that requires you to slow down, right? I think good business is thoughtful business. I think good business practice is intentional. And so much of life these days is encouraging us to just give it all the gas you've got and, look in the wake and see what happens, but just keep your eyes ahead. And I think slowing down and looking all around you and taking in all the advice that's out there that's relevant, that may not be what you want to hear, it's probably what you need to hear. I think that makes you so much better at business.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. So if there was someone out there that was struggling with their business and being afraid to ask for help, what would you say to them, man?
Call me, right? We started this conversation off by saying I'm the least lawyerly lawyer you'll ever meet. Yeah. Right? I'm paraphrasing, but that's how I phrase it, is I'm the least lawyerly lawyer you'll ever meet.
And I mean that in a great way, man.
Yeah, no, I genuinely, it is one of the highest compliments you could ever give me. Because lawyer is what I do. It's not who I am. We are all people. Yeah. And if you're struggling with your business, if you're not sure what to do, make a phone call. I promise I'm friendly, and I don't generally charge for that phone call. Why? Because if I have a conversation with you today, you may be able to fix your problems. And then what are you going to do? You're going to call me when you want to make that next big transaction. You're going to have me help you put that deal together. Yeah. Or if we have a conversation, you go, oh man, I may need some help. Well, cool. Then I'll assist you with that. But the time and investment that we make in a free conversation on the front end, it saves them headache and money. It saves me headache and money. And it helps move the ball forward, and that's worth a conversation. Yeah. So if you're struggling, if you're not sure which end is up, if you're going, man, I'm facing these decisions, which a lot of people are right now in business, please call me. Please shoot me an email. Yeah, I'm happy to help.
For sure, man. I think if I were in a dire situation where I was concerned, I would want somebody that I would feel comfortable approaching, and you certainly are that, Mike. And I
appreciate that.
Handling things where, you do so with a bit of humor and grace that way. I think for somebody that's in a difficult situation, as opposed to somebody who I come into that's going to be intimidating to me and give me the gloom and doom and all that, I would feel much better about coming to that. So I appreciate that kind of attitude that you have towards it.
We either laugh or we cry, man. And, laughing burns more calories. So #gains. Let's get over it and have a chuckle, right?
Yeah, man. So, one thing I love about our community is that we have people that genuinely want to help each other out. And, I think you're a good example of that. The Kevin Elliott's of the world, the Alan Branches of the world, man. The way that
praise, thank you.
Well, the way that we can become a better community is to be helpful to each other in the mentorship and the lessons learned and all that. And that is one great thing about us, is that Panama City, Bay County is a place where you have that mentality, man.
Yeah, man.
So
we're all people. And I think in Panama City, more than a lot of towns I've ever lived in, we're all people who want to see each other succeed. Yeah. Because if we succeed, our town succeeds. And if there's one thing I know about folks from Panama City, we really love where we live, and we're proud to be here, and we're proud of the resilience that we wear on our backs as a community. And so if the greatest compliment someone could give me is say, hey, Michael, I heard you might be someone who I could talk to about some business advice. I'm going through some stuff. Can we have conversation? Absolutely. Let's go downtown. Let's go get a coffee. Let's go grab a beer. Let's go grab a bite to eat. And let's have that conversation. Because one, we're going to get to know each other as people. Because we are more than our problems.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to get to know each other as people. We're going to build a relationship. And you might figure out some things that'll help each other out in the process.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad that you're involved in those kind of things. And before we wrap up today, tell me about the Yacht Club and what's going on with the Yacht Club, man. I know you're serving as Commodore,
I
and
am.
You guys have a rebuild from when the fire happened.
We do.
Tell me about what timeline you guys are looking at and what's happening over there.
It's actually going really great. A lot of times people get uneasy during the still phases, right? Because if you don't see a lot of big, flashy activity going on, you're concerned that there may not be progress. Sometimes the most important progress is quiet progress. And so what's really exciting is we have selected a contractor. That announcement will come out in a few weeks, so I won't say it here.
Very cool.
I already broke enough news on the Road to Rich podcast today.
Episode, yeah,
that's right. So, but we've done that. We have some plans in place that would bring a space to the community that is really unlike anything else in the area.
Yeah.
It will be gorgeous. It is. I'm really, really proud of it. And I realize a lot of times people go, "Oh, Michael, you're the Commodore of the Yacht Club," and so then they look to me, but I'm just a talking head more often than not, because what's truly behind me is a group of individuals. We've got Brian Neubauer, who's a commercial contractor. That's my vice Commodore. We've got Holly Hales, whose family is in construction. She's a lawyer. She's my rear Commodore.
Yep.
We've got Minta Harbison, a lifelong restaurateur who's serving on my board of directors. I got Tiffany Ennis, a CPA, who's serving as my treasurer. And the list goes on and on and on of individuals who are entrepreneurs, who are business people, who were all at the right place at the right time to be able to take something that could have been disastrous. And boy, we have had a lot of needles to thread, but we are now standing on the verge of rebuilding something that, again, this community can be really proud of.
Oh, yeah.
So to any members out there watching this podcast, on July 28th, we'll have our all-member meeting. So that's when we're going to share with our membership for the first time.
That's awesome.
What's forthcoming. But I'm hopeful, and I can say this, that we will break ground this year. And so to those who aren't members of the Yacht Club yet, reach out to me. Let's talk about what's coming and how you can be a part of it, because it's a special community, that has grown over decades and generations. And to be able to breathe new life into that and to be a part of paving the way for future generations, it's a very humbling process to be a part of.
Well, and what you guys have talked about with the kind of elements that you're considering for the new building as well, I think it's such an incredible opportunity to put something there that's truly super special, that you're going to be able to have incredible events there. And some of the limitations of the old building versus what you're going to do with the new one, man, I'm so excited to see it. I think it's going to be amazing. And your waterfront is second to none, man.
Absolutely.
It's going to be such a great place.
I guarantee you, as the business community of Bay County grows, and as we continue to bring new industry and new executives and new entrepreneurs into town, I would put myself out on a limb here and say the majority of new business will likely be done on the decks at the Yacht Club, because it's where people will want to be.
Yeah.
It is outstanding. And I'm so humbled to have been asked to be a part of that, not knowing what I was going to take over. The running joke is a former guest of yours and a mutual dear friend of both of ours, Will Kramer, was the Commodore before me. And I'll never forget getting the phone call from him in November of 23. I was in Costa Rica on a surf trip.
Yeah.
And he says, "Mike, it's gone." I said, "What's gone, Will?" He says, the Yacht Club. It's burning down as we speak. And I mean, my stomach just sank. And so the next day I hop on a plane, cut a month-long trip short, and I'm back in Panama City. And I've joked with Will and I've said, the mark of any kind of board of director president or a CEO or anything is you always want to leave it in better shape then you found it. And I said, well, Will, really, man, thank you for
Great job.
sandbagging
Yeah.
me on that one, because nowhere but literally the dirt ground up to go from here. And he goes, hey, man, I do it for you anytime. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
What a guy.
what a guy, exactly. Nowhere but up to go.
You had some serious shoes to fill in for Commodore after him, man. There will never be another Commodore like him, I don't think.
I can't wear his outfit. I
That's
try to wear
wild,
his
man.
hat. No, it's, I say humbling. I don't know if they knew that I was the youngest Commodore the Yacht Club had ever had.
Really?
When I took over that
Cool.
position.
Nice.
Now I'm in my second year at that role, and you talk about the legacy and the history
Yeah.
of Commodores that preceded me and the marks that they've left on Bay County.
Yeah, some awesome folks, man.
It's a lot, but you carry it with humility, and you carry it with the perspective of you're building something to honor them and to honor those that come after you.
Yeah. Well, I fully expect that, when you get to the end of your career, we're going to look back at it and be like, man, Mike was badass for Bay County, man. I really do.
I hope so.
Dude, you put in the work every day, man. I know you do, and you're involved in so many different things. And I just want to tell you that I personally appreciate that about you, man.
That means a
Think
lot.
the most of you, man.
Thank you, man, from my heart. Thank you. I don't really know what else to say other than thank you. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, man, that kind of wraps up our time today. But, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here. Always love the conversations with you, Mike. Thank you for being here today. And y'all, please tune in again next time for the Road to Rich podcast. We hope to hear from you soon.